Welcome to The Special Sauce, the podcast that goes inside the minds of recruitment's top 1%. We're your hosts, Chris Pedikis and Lee Jones, the founders of Sorciety, the rec-to-rec agency connecting elite recruiters with elite opportunities. Each week, we sit down with agency recruiters who are billing big numbers annually to uncover what really drives high performance in this industry. It's no fluff, it's no filters, it's just real conversations with the best in the business. Let's get into it. Let's do this.
All right, we ready?
Today on The Special Sauce, we are joined by Pam Panagopoulos from Talent Redefined. Originally from Melbourne and having a strong sales background, Pam joined the recruitment sector 8 years ago, working for a boutique agency specialising in sales recruitment. This is where she began her niche specialisation into the world of MedTech, pharmaceuticals and life sciences, with a focus on sales and other commercial roles within these industries. Having enjoyed great success, she joined a larger global business, where I actually managed her, and continued her focus in that sector during the tricky times of the pandemic and further honed her specialist skills. Fast forward to 2025, and she established her own business called Talent Redefined and began working for herself and has enjoyed some fantastic success considering how early into her journey she is. With a history of billing big numbers, Pamela has been able to build a very strong reputation in her sector, which sees her clients coming back to her time and time again. Build and maintain crucial relationships, and how she continues to consistently deliver, all whilst doing this by herself with no support. Welcome to The Special Sauce, Pam.
Thanks for having me, guys. That's such a nice intro.
Thank you. I was going to say something, but
No, I think great intro, and yeah, definitely excited to have you on the show.
Thank
today,
you.
Pam.
it's good to catch up. We haven't, obviously we used to work together, Pam, for a few years, which was great.
I know, you poor thing.
I know. Maybe it was you the poor thing, right? And me having me as your leader, right? But let's get into it. Maybe to start off with, can you just tell us in detail about your desk, what you recruit, and for who?
Yeah, sure. So 8 years ago, I landed my first job in recruitment, and I don't know if it was luck or fate that had me placed in the MedTech pharmaceutical life science industry. The reason I say I don't know if it was luck or fate is because I loved it so much, and I think, and I'd be curious to hear from you both if you experience this regularly, I find that I'm one of those few that have loved my industry from the offset. I've never wanted to change. I've never wavered. I feel really deeply aligned to the purpose of the industry. So for 8 years, I've recruited across MedTech, Pharma, life science, all things commercial, so sales and marketing being my real niche. And it's been a real considered, thoughtful approach to stay within the space. So I think what I have seen, and again, curious to hear your thoughts, but I've seen recruiters sometimes double in and out of industry or specialisation or try and be generalists. I've been really headstrong around the importance of having a niche and a specialisation in order to add value. So that's been a really, thoughtful and considered, approach to that.
Yeah, look, full credit to you, because I've done that desk as well, like sales in that pharma space. I think you probably would have saw my name on the CRM. And look, it's for those who haven't done it, like that pharma space, it's tough. And I think, obviously you've been really successful, and I've got no doubt part of that comes down to you. I think you do have to be really aligned with it, because I think, what those kind of pharma companies do, they've obviously got purpose and goals and values. And I think that if you're not aligned with that, they can pick up on that and they won't use you.
Yeah, totally. And I think in order to also add value to that industry, if you don't have a true passion for it, because through passion allows you to do extra reps in research or in true understanding, and being pharmaceutical and medical devices, very driven by data and insights and value. So if you're not that way inclined, you're just not going to cut through.
When you started, when you started in that first recruitment role, did you pick that sector, or was it?
No, and this is why I say, was it luck or fate?
Yeah,
so
right.
At the time I had, and I think a lot of people probably have this experience, I had interviewed at an agency 8 years ago for a role that they were recruiting and representing a client on, and the director at the time had said to me, hey, I think you'd be really good at recruitment. I feel like so many of us have had that experience, and at the time I was relatively young and I really could change and pivot careers. And I thought, hey, let's give this a go. and I was placed on the desk. And the reason being was for a short stint, I'd worked in a scientific organisation being a leader for that business. And so I had that already understanding and alignment that would cross over. And he said I was very well presented, which would align with the industry. And so, yeah, super grateful that that was, the way that my career went.
And here we are.
I think you're right. 90% of people probably entered the recruitment market or got their first job that way, right? You went in for an interview. I know I did, for whatever role. Oh, hey, have you thought about recruitment? No, but hey, here we are, 20 years later almost.
Yeah, everyone gets sold the dream.
100%. Tell us about your market. How's it going this year compared to last?
I don't know if I'm an optimist, but I've never felt that my market has dipped drastically. Again, don't know if I'm an optimist, but I just ride that kind of way. But if I'm to answer your question directly, it is booming. And I don't know if that's a reflection of the market. It probably has a part to play, or the fact that I've just launched my own business, and that also has a part to play. I don't know. But market's doing really, really well. Lots of opportunity, lots of roles. Booming.
That's what we love to hear. And obviously started your own business.
Yes.
With about 8 months ago now.
Yep.
Take us through how, still in your first year, right? How's it all going?
Incredible.
Yeah.
So I kind of, it's twofold of like, why didn't I do this sooner? And when's that bubble going to burst? Because it feels almost too good to be true. That's kind of where I'm at the moment.
What was it for you? What was the catalyst to finally say, I'm doing this and I'm going to do it on my own?
How candid do you want me to be?
Well, you can be as candid as you want.
As I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Look, I think it was two things. So if you know me well, or if you follow me on LinkedIn, you will see me talk a lot about your environment being incredibly important for your success. My environment at the time didn't feel aligned. It didn't feel appropriate for me to be there. And the second part was I was tired of building up someone else's business and dream. I wanted to build my own. Like there's just no two ways about it. I wanted to build something for myself and a legacy for myself. And so that was, the real driver behind that. And it was scary, but I feel like nothing really great comes from not being scary.
No, I think we can speak from experience, and we both did this or left our previous roles for maybe some of the same, but maybe different reasons. But I don't know. I think one thing we find speaking to a lot of founders is it's also not something that you just wake up one day and go, I'm going to do this. And I think there's that burning desire. And I know we speak to a lot of recruiters who get to a level where they'll speak to us and say, I'm weighing up whether I go to an agency or whether I go on and do my own. My advice personally is go and do your own thing, because until you scratch that itch, you're always going to have it.
The wondering of the what if. I think for me, I was really clear. I did not want to go to another agency. I could not think of anything more exhausting than to try and build something for someone else. So the answer was really simple. It was just kind of getting around that mindset of the fear, really, of kind of, going out on your own.
It's a good segue, mindset, that we're going to talk about next. Talk to us about what's your mindset actually around business and building relationships? How do you actually go about it, and the why?
Okay, so my ethos with that is relationships are such a value exchange, and I think a lot of recruiters can sometimes enter that in a really transactional way. So if you enter anything with a mindset of I want to take, you'll be met with the same. And so it will be a really short-lived, transactional, what can I get type of relationship, and that's just never been my way. So the way I kind of really approach business and life is really around how can I add value, whether that be through knowledge, through experience, through energy, through helping, whatever it might be. And so, that's how I kind of approach business, clients, candidates, and the rest.
Just on that, because I think, that giving to get is something that, for a lot of recruiters early on in your career, I know for me, I didn't get that early on. It took me probably much longer than most, right? And maybe it's due to the environment I kind of grew up in, so to speak, in recruitment. But just for our listeners, and perhaps the ones that are, haven't quite made that, connection yet on what they need to do, what is it that you do? Like when you talk about giving, what are the kind of things we're talking about here?
So if I draw it right back, it can be a variety of things. And I think it's, again, I touched on this earlier, but my sector is really big on data, on connectivity, on understanding. And I dare say a lot of industries and sectors would be similar, but some might value something else better than that. So if I know that about my industry, then I know that's what they'll value. So I invest a lot of time in creating data insights or research or events to be able to give my market what they find valuable and not ask for anything in return. So with that, I'm not only showcasing me and how I show up, but I'm also giving without asking in return. And sometimes that works and you can win an incredible account and a long-standing relationship. And sometimes that alignment's not there and that's okay. But yeah, that's kind of, I hope that answered that.
No, it does.
No, it does. And I think it's, just as you said, it's, recruitment's not just about making a placement, right? I mean, ultimately that's the end goal.
Yeah.
Get a role, make a placement, get paid. But it's, the steps along that journey where, it could be salary insights or whatever market insights that's relevant for that business. It's those adding value, right? Throughout the whole process. I think that makes you stand out and you're not transactional. And I guess how do you sort of balance that between, I guess, the realities of, running a business, running a desk? You obviously need revenue, right? That short term versus long term. How do you balance the two?
Being 8 years in is really different to 1 or 2 years. Like now I'm in and I'm aware that it's a privileged position to have, and that's not privileged because I haven't done the work. I've spent 8 years hustling hard and adding value, but I've got a really great customer base that is repeat business. But if I reflect on, year 1, year 2, year 3, it really is being able to identify, I suppose, really early on who will purchase and buy versus who is just taking to take. And that's really hard to understand the differences. And I mean, I still am learning that. I don't think you've ever can be the master of that. But I suppose it's being able to identify, or if I take a step back, it's being able to ask the question. So I think a lot of the time we can be afraid to kind of go, hey, can we do business here? Like, ask for that business.
Yeah, like when are we going to actually do a deal here? Like, are we dating or like what's the deal?
Like we've done that foreplay. Are we progressing? And I think I've never been scared to ask. Like I'm really comfortable to have an uncomfortable conversation or kind of call it for what it is. And so I think that's the first step. So being able to kind of go, hey, I'm going to ask for your business. Like, where are we at? Like, give me a shot. And if it's a no, sometimes it's a no right now and it can kind of turn around. And if it's a no for whatever reason, they're on a PSA or whatever, then you move on.
Yeah.
But I think it's being able to, have that kind of conversation and question early.
Still on, I guess, the mindset topic, there was something when we spoke previously, you spoke about one of the real motivators or drivers for you is not wanting to let people down.
Yeah. Talk
to us more about that.
I think I have always been that way inclined, and it's a good thing and it's a bad thing as well. But I don't know, I'm sure you guys have worked with people or recruiters where they say they're going to do something and they don't. You just can't depend on them. You can't count on them. And that shits me. Like I've always found it incredibly frustrating and it just doesn't sit well. So I've never wanted to be like that. So I will do absolutely everything to be the complete opposite. And some people will say, oh, your standards are too high, or, oh, but you work around the clock. I'd rather be known for having really high standards or working night and day, or so I don't let someone down, rather than the opposite. So, but to answer your question, where does that kind of come from? I don't know. I think I probably need to go to therapy and really unpack that. There's probably something deep-seated.
Unfortunately, we're not qualified for that, right? We're here for recruitment banter, and that's about
So that's not what this is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking about not letting down, I remember working with Pam. She'd have like a massive couple months, she'd do 60, 70 grand in a month. And next month, pipeline might be a little bit, smaller. She's still going to do probably 40 or 50 grand. Stress, man. I don't want to let you down this. I'm only going to do this. So I think what it comes back down to is standards, right?
Yeah.
That you hold yourself to really, really high standards, and you can continually push yourself a bit more, right? Rather than setting the standard, quite low, which is awesome.
And I think to add to that, like we as recruiters are playing such a big role for the companies we recruit for. Like, they're a business at the end of the day, and in order to recruit someone, that has a profound impact on their business. So if there's no territory manager in New South Wales, that's an empty territory that's costing the business money. I'm just so hyper aware of that, and I just know that the impact that can have on a bottom line. And so, yeah, just being able to deliver on that. Yeah. Just waffled then. Sort of.
No, look,
you can
I
cut
think,
that, right?
Yeah, we can. I think from a mindset perspective as well, though, that's also something that comes with experience, is when you know that you actually bring value. Because I think when you first start in the industry and you get a lot of those no's, you know, you kind of, I don't know, a lot of businesses don't value recruiters.
Yeah.
Right? But I think in your industry in particular, and in sales recruitment for that matter, what we do actually adds a lot of value.
Yeah.
And I think if we think back to a couple of episodes ago where we interviewed Danny Hansard, and one of the things that stuck with me was that he said, if you speak to any company that's gone through growth or has grown, 9 times out of 10, there'll be a recruiter that's helped with that growth, and they're very grateful for it.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes we've got to remember that actually what we do has a real impact on companies and candidates, obviously.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's never been lost on me. And another motivator why I wanted to start my business, because I was so hyper aware of the lack of quality that there is in the industry. And, you know, that's a whole nother conversation. But I think, yeah, the industry does need to lift. And I think, agency owners need to be held accountable, both from like a development and being able to create the right environment to be able to deliver that. But I definitely think that there's a gap there.
100%. I think it's, I think for just speaking from experience, a lot of agencies, it's that balance between sales and I guess your standards as well, right? As opposed to, sales at any cost, that short-term transactional, it's month end or quarter end, and we need to get deals in, as opposed to, building the foundations right for that relationship with that particular client.
Yeah.
That it's, it's not going to be a short-term play, right?
Yeah.
Something I wanted to talk about was personal brand. Now, this is something you started focusing on, I think it was only a couple of years ago, right? I've known you for a long time. And anyone, I guess, in your sector or in recruitment, would definitely see your presence across the socials. Talk us through this and your mindset around your personal brand.
So my mindset has changed. So if you ask me, 8 years ago, I don't think I posted on LinkedIn for, I would say, the first 4 years of being a recruiter. I never posted on LinkedIn. But I remember early on in my career, year 1, year 2 maybe, we had a session with LinkedIn and they had talked about personal branding. And I remember at the time, there was no one in the business that I was working in that was posting or doing any sort of personal branding. So it felt really scary. And there was no one that I saw that I could kind of go, oh, I like that, I'm going to create my own. But I remember LinkedIn saying, don't continue just to post your job. Don't just post reviews. You want to be adding value to your network. And at the time, to your point earlier, I didn't know how to add value. I was still really early on. I didn't really know what I was doing. So fast forward to today, the currency of business is our personal brand. And in order to build relationships and add value at scale, you must be on socials, and whether that be LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever your market is on. My mindset has shifted drastically, and it hasn't happened overnight. It took years of really understanding how I wanted to show up. So if I was to give advice to someone that perhaps is starting in recruitment or hasn't built a personal brand yet on LinkedIn, it would be get clear on how you want to show up. It's not too indifferent to the advice we're often shared when you start in a business, and it's kind of like, how do you want to be known? What's your internal brand? It's the same for online. So get really clear on how you want to show up. Add more value than what you're looking to extract. So posting a job every single day, posting your reviews every single day is not adding any value to your community. And then being really consistent are the key things.
Yeah. And I think you make some really good points there, because I think Chris and I were the same a couple of years ago. Like, even the thought of posting on LinkedIn, like, it just wasn't for me. Like, I don't post on my own social media, like personal ones, right? But I think you talk about adding value, and I think what we see with a lot of junior recruiters, they don't realize what they actually have. You know, like those conversations where you're just giving candidates or clients market insights or saying, oh, this is what's happening out there, that's adding value.
Yeah.
And you've just got to be able to communicate that to your market.
Yeah, and I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head, right? You think how many conversations they have in a month, right? Anyone that started, you know, the first 1 or 2 years, you're speaking to candidates, you're speaking to clients, you're speaking to your colleagues internally, you know, obviously on a daily basis. There's a heap of info that adds value to clients straight away.
Yeah.
And it's just getting that out there, right? And that's what clients ultimately want.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we'll start to see a shift in that as well, because what we're starting to see, as you would definitely be aware, is more and more recruiters starting to do that. So what will end up happening is there'll be this influx of the same type of thing, and there'll be that fatigue from the market. So then we'll start to see a shift in a way of how we start to show up. What that looks like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, our feeds are just recruiters.
Yeah,
right?
so you would see it all the time.
So we see it all.
What cuts through for you two?
I think when you talk about trends and there needs to be a reset, what's been like just going nuts lately is the personal stuff, which I think you've got to show insight and you've got to have that personal. And I'm no social media expert, right? So this isn't marketing advice, but I don't know, from what I see, it's almost gone so far to the personal. It's like, I don't know, there's not a whole heap of like valuable or credible stuff on there. And Chris and I talk about it all the time. Like we can sit there and try and, you know, do things like this and create good, valuable content. Then you post a fucking photo of your dog and you get 300 likes and 2,000 impressions.
I love my dog.
Yeah, I know. It's good. It's good. If you're not using it for likes,
no, but
you need to. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And I think there's always that balance. And it's like the jobs. So those recruiters that only post the jobs that they're working on and nothing else. The very same thing. So I think there has to be that real balance of sharing your personal side to be able to build trust and rapport.
100%.
Yeah.
But I definitely agree. There has to be, it almost needs to be like 70-30. 70% of value.
Yep.
And then that 30%.
I think you got to have that likability,
personal.
right? In terms of as a person, like number one, you got to be trusted.
Yeah.
Right? And saying, well, do they know what they're talking about? Are they adding value?
Yeah.
Two, you got to be sort of known, and that's how you get known, right, in your sector.
Yeah.
And finally, it's that likability piece.
Yeah.
You know, I think letting those personal snippets of, you know, whatever you want to share. Some people say some crazy shit, but whatever.
It's like too much info.
See it, hey.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy, my feed.
Yeah. And then you're like, but, you know, each to their own, right? And
Yes.
I think that's where you get, I think, liked.
Yeah.
And they go, you know what, I'm going to use Pam for my next
Yeah.
role because not only is she adding value, she knows her stuff.
Yes.
And knows her shit, but she seems like a great person as
Yeah.
well.
But it's also market relevant, right? Because there might be some industries where the personal stuff does get a bit more cut through, and maybe early on in your career you do more of the personal to build that trust. But yeah, it's definitely a fine line.
Yeah.
For sure.
One thing I think are really, really great at, right? And I guess I think you did this recently in Sydney a couple of days ago. Events. Talk us through that. Something you're passionate about. How do you go about it? You know, is it a big investment? Because I think a lot of recruiters see it, and a lot of companies see it, and they go, well, you know, that looks great, but it's going to cost a bomb. Who's got the time to do this? What do we get in return? Is it just fluff? It's a lot of questions, right, that I've just asked. But I guess for yourself, take us through your journey through organising events and what you get in return.
Okay. So with events, one of your questions was, is it, you know, an investment of time and money, and what that kind of looks like? So yes. Yes, it can be as expensive or as cheap as you like to run it. Like, I don't think there's any kind of rule book in that. I think the joy of having my own business is I can control what that looks like, and that's been a real joy this year, is hosting events that feel really aligned to my business and my kind of aesthetic, and creating a really beautiful experience. And the feedback's been amazing. So in terms of the why with an event piece, so I think, and I touched on this around showing up online and the ability to connect at scale through a digital forum. The event is similar. So obviously not the same reach as your LinkedIn, but you know, if I think about, if I want to meet 30 to 50 of my core clients that are in Sydney, I would need to be in Sydney for a week or 2 weeks to be able to, you know, have coffee catch-ups or 1 hour lunches with each and every one of them. If I host an event for 3 hours or 2.5 hours over lunch, I can catch up with 50 of them. Yes, it may not be, sitting down in incredibly one-on-one time, but it is at scale. And so from a time perspective, that's really important. So being able to get in front of as many clients as possible in a short amount of time. It's also a really good opportunity to add value. I've seen events hosted where there's not been enough thought. So I think what can happen sometimes is a push for an event's sake. It's almost like BD. When people are just calling for quantity and there's no value, and then it's just a volumes game, and like, why are we doing this? So events can fall into the same trap. So it's around really understanding, okay, well, why am I running this event? What do I know from my market that they either need, or what am I forecasting in the next 12 months that I know is going to be something really important to talk about or shed light on? And then working backwards from that. So I use my events to be able to do a couple of things. So the first part is give my clients a platform. So not too dissimilar to a lot of recruiters, a lot of my clients are still learning that process of being able to be thought leaders on LinkedIn. So, I've got 16,000 followers on LinkedIn. A lot of my network are future candidates for my clients. Being able to give them a platform where they are showing up as a thought leader is not only highlighting them as a leader, but their business. That's free marketing.
Yep.
So that's a huge value add. From an audience or attendees perspective, the ability to come together with a network they ordinarily wouldn't have access to is a huge value add. Because if you think about general managers, marketing directors, sales directors in the industry, they don't often get to sit side by side with others in the same industry and network or get inspired by or just lean in. So having that access to that network is a huge value add. So they're the kind of pillars, I suppose. And then, working backwards from that, I did just get back from running the event in Sydney, which was amazing.
Can I just say, the videos on your socials, that looks amazing.
Thank
so
you.
well done on that, because
Thank
it looks super cool.
Very stressful. So yes, lots of stress. I'm only me, so I don't have like an event coordinator or an EA. Who knows, maybe something like that will come up soon for my business. But lots of time that goes into it. But I think it's such an important investment, because to answer your question before, why do you do it and what's the kind of payoff as a business? Brand awareness is huge. And I think, anything with marketing or brand awareness, it's often, is it just fluff? Like, how do we kind of measure that? Yes, that falls into that category. But the second part is being able to build stronger relationships with your network. And as a byproduct of that, usually you're able to win business or have repeat business kind of come from that.
So with regards to kind of format of these events, right? For those who maybe haven't done it or are thinking about doing it, like, what are you typically doing? Is this like is it breakfast, lunch? Is it after work drinks? Is it run club? What? Tell us more about what you kind of find works.
I think there's really kind of no rule book, I don't think. And I think for me, what I've done is a lunch and a panel, because I know that works for my market. But I have seen, breakfasts, I've seen, all sorts of stuff that has worked. I think it really depends on who and what you're trying to do. So mine is really about adding value. And so I don't want it just to be lunch or just a coffee type of catch up. Like, I always like to have a panel to be able to talk to a topic, and there's that kind of thought leadership piece. And so lunch usually works best because a lot of parents in senior roles can struggle with the mornings or a late afternoon, so want to really accommodate that and not feel like anyone has to move things around for their own personal family, kids and stuff. So lunch usually has been a really good way to run it.
One of the things that scares the heck out of me about doing events is organising someone and no one showing up.
Yeah.
So how, what do you do? Like, give us a bit more of an insight as to how you actually organise them and make sure people turn up and get that, I guess, convert the time and effort you put into it into deals.
Yeah. Definitely scary. It feels like it's like your first birthday. And, you know, the first birthday that you have in like primary school where you invite people and you're like, oh my God, is anyone going to come? I'm going to be the laughing stock at school on Monday. So it definitely feels like that. And it doesn't get easier. Like I felt like that in Sydney. You're still, your stomach is like churning. But in order to gain that commitment, it's really like a PR build up from the moment that you begin the outreach. Like educating or what's the word I'm looking for? Like promoting the event right through to just before the event. So if you think about, you know, if a brand was to launch a particular product and they have an influencer event and all the rest of it, there's hype and it's the same type of thing. So it's having really clear connection points 2 months out, 1 month out, 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, 1 week out with the attendees. And there is always drop-offs. You know, with my event in Sydney, I had probably 7 people drop out over that touch point. But if I didn't do any of those touch points until the week before, I would have been screwed because how hard is it to, you know, get people to come to an event a week out over lunch in senior roles? So difficult. So those touch points not only build hype, but it also, allows you to catch anyone that's plans have changed and you can invite someone else.
And so you're not just pumping out like an invite saying, hey guys, RSVP, you're using that as kind of an opportunity to call them, have a conversation, which I guess is your BD call, but also adding value, come to the event.
Yeah.
And I guess you then know how keen they are.
And strategic with who I invite. So not everyone gets an invite.
Yeah, okay.
It has to, so clients always get first dibs on my events, always. And then it's around, okay, who in my community or network have I built a really good connection with, or who are some of those key players in the industry that I would love to do business with, but haven't had that opportunity to connect. That's kind of it. My events typically are client focused. Some people I've seen run candidate focused events. So yeah, you can kind of do it one of both ways. Yeah.
Also imagine in terms of what you touched on earlier, growing your network at scale, right? And, you know, maybe one of the disadvantages is you don't get the, you know, full 1 hour one-on-one. But imagine, you know, you're calling all these people afterwards, right? It's just follow-up calls, meetings, what do you think of the event? Get back out in front of them. So instead of, you know, having a 1 hour meeting with them, you might get in front of them 3 or 4 times during the rest of the year. Is that on the mark?
Yeah, exactly right. That's right. And usually with an event, because they get to see you in a state that isn't pitching or selling or it's just adding value, usually you build a really good connection. Like most people kind of go, oh, I really like her. I really like what she stands for and what she's about. And I like what she's building here. And then you get that alignment. And those that don't, that's cool too. Like, don't want to do business with them.
Yeah, nah, like I said, I love some of the content that you're doing. And, you know, I think even for us, like events would be really good for us to do. But
are you thinking about doing events?
I think we should be doing them.
After hearing you today, Pam, we're inspired.
Oh,
we've thought about it. But yeah, like for Lee and I to organise a cup of water, it's
I think we'll definitely have to call on the other half of society, being our wives.
Yeah, the better half,
to
right?
help us with this.
Yeah, otherwise we're
because they would just be, if they would just be looking at us too, like going,
what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Just leave it to the experts.
Yeah, I think we definitely. What, just on that, I guess what do you get in return? Like if you don't know if you have to go into too much detail, but in terms of, you know, since you've started doing events, how's that impacted your desk in terms of, you know, at the end of the day, that return on investment, billings?
Huge. I've been able to win some of my biggest accounts that have been long-standing now through my event series. So it's profound, the impact that it has. And that doesn't, like, what I don't want to mislead by saying, let me start that again. I don't want to mislead anyone by saying that it's super easy and you'll win everyone that you invite, you'll get every single person to sign up and you're going to get their business. That's not the reality. But from every event, I've been able to, sign a really big account. But that's never been and this might be wrong, but that's never been my focus. Like, I've just always had that mindset of, if I do a really good event, which I enjoy, and I connect with some really great people and I can add value, the byproduct will be the business. It's just never been a focus at the forefront.
Yeah, I think it's a common theme that we're seeing with the people that we're interviewing on this podcast is the concept of building communities. And I think, once again, like, I don't think anyone's set out with the aim that, hey, if I do this event that's going to cost me X and I get one job, you know, I'm this much in profit. But you're going to get wins from it from bringing people together.
If you do a good event, so if you're thoughtful, if it's not for the event's sake, yes. Because it comes to, I forget which one of you said it earlier, but if you are going into something and it's not genuine, your clients feel that.
Yep.
And so the same goes for events. Like, if you're just doing it for a tick of a box or for status, clients can feel that and they're not going to want to do business with you. But if it's for the latter and it's genuinely to help and it's genuinely because you want to do this for the good of the industry, and then it will follow through.
We'll definitely hit you up when we're doing events, Pam, because we'll need a lot of help.
I can call Pam.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I want to talk about was your process, right? I remember working with you and recall you being one of the most diligent people when it came to follow-up and having that knowledge of your clients and when they were hiring. Talk to us about how you do this and how you go about it, basically.
Yeah, so I think the art is in the follow-up. So I don't know any business that I've won or account that I've won that I've called on the first go when I've got their business. Like, I just don't think that's reality. It's always been in the follow-up, and I have found that having a really clear calendar on what that looks like and a value point, an ad at each touch point is critical. So, an event series is a touch point. Coffee or lunch is a touch point. A phone call is a touch point. So making sure that I have it marked in my calendar or through my database that I'm contacting those particular clients at that point in time, is critical for that.
You kind of just touched on it there. I want to go into a bit more detail because I agree that follow-up is really, really important. I think the question I have is, like, as recruiters, as a 360 recruiter, business owner, there's so much stuff you got to do throughout the day. Like, how do you actually track or know? Like, is it the tasks section on the CRM? Is it your calendar? Is it some kind of tech that we don't know about? Like, what is it that you do specifically to make sure you don't miss this stuff?
I know you love your tech.
I do.
So you're probably hoping it's some exciting tech. It's not. It's just my CRM, which I use Job Adder.
Yep.
It's just using tasks. And at Randstad, I was the same. My previous organisation's the same. I would always use tasks because I found with calendar, once the date's
it's gone,
and then it's really hard to kind of remember. I kind of think it goes back to I don't want to let people down. So usually when I finish up a call or a meeting, there's a future touch point. And so if I don't call then, well, that's my reputation. Because if I'm promising when you're not even my client yet that I'm going to do something and I don't, what trust or faith are you going to have that I'll deliver for you as a business partner in recruitment? So that follow-up is really key. You need to be strategic with your BD. So I think, you're not going to have 80 follow-up calls like it's just in one day. Like, I think that's just not realistic. And then the question would be, why are you targeting, that many businesses? Like, have you really thought about
who you want to work with?
And scope and alignment and all the rest of it. So, being really strategic in who I'm BDing and what, and then using my database, my CRM, to be able to structure follow-up calls.
Yeah, got you.
And it's effectively just mapping out your market, right? So when, I think when people are hiring, what volume of hires they're going to have this year. So I think you can look at your desk and say, well, you know what, there's a couple million or $1 million or a couple $1 million, whatever it is, of opportunity. I'm not saying you'll place all that. And I think that's something that a lot of, newish recruiters call it in the first 1 to 3 years. Probably, maybe they don't do enough. If you ask them, where's your next placement coming from? How much is your desk worth, right? If you don't do that, it's hard. And I remember you used to do that so well when we worked together,
You
right?
taught me that, to be fair.
Oh, thanks.
And this isn't set up, by the way.
We didn't Sounds like it to me.
I'll give you that cash in the brown paper bag later, Pam.
We did not even play this. But honestly, I think of my year 1, 2 in recruitment, I did not have that skill. I knew how to be tenacious and follow up. Like I was always really process orientated, but I never had the leadership and knowledge and to be able to market map. So that really came from you being able to really, it's that commercial lens really. And I think that's where it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. Like I think agency owners have such a responsibility to equip their people, because I don't think a year 1 or year 2 recruiter should have the expectation to learn that on their own. Like how are you supposed to? Yeah. And if I didn't work with you, who knows if I would have ever harnessed that skill. So I also think it's really important for recruiters to work in different agencies.
Yeah.
I don't think a recruiter should stay in one agency for 10 years. Like I really think it's helpful for recruiters to go from agency to agency to be able to round out their skill set, understanding, learn from different leaders. Sorry, you didn't ask me about that, but I'm just going to add that. What do you two think on that?
I think that's spot on. Like, well, I think I worked for 3 or 4 agencies over, say, 15 years, but there was different things that I picked up from each, right? And I think what you know, for the listeners, just so they're aware, I guess what you're talking about when we refer to market mapping well, at the time anyway, in Randstad world, was not just picking clients that you're gonna work with. It's actually having conversations with those clients to understand what are their hiring habits, so that you can then formulate, right, X amount of opportunity. If I can close 50% of it, it means 30 grand, and you do that with 30 clients, and all of a sudden you've got a mapped desk, right? That there's not many agencies that go into the depth to do that.
No.
And it's such a good tool where, like, you know, and that's why I think they can put people onto desks and they can get up and running pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas there's plenty of agencies out there that have no structure or process. It's like, we're really strong in this market, but consultant turns up day one and it's like, well, where do I start?
Yeah, totally. And I think also what's also really important with that is like the honesty piece around, and I don't know if you've seen this or spoken to recruiters that have had this experience, but landing in an agency, having no experience in that particular vertical and being advised to pretend that you do, which I think exacerbates this issue that we have of recruitment and the reputation in the industry. Because I think there's a difference between like faking it till you're making it and flat out lying.
Yeah.
100%.
I've got a ripper story about this one.
Yeah,
right.
I know what you're going to say. Go for it.
So recently I spoke to a recruiter who, I won't say who they are or what company, but they're coming out from the UK, right? So obviously to be sponsored from a visa perspective, you need pretty much 2 years experience and a degree. So I looked at this person's profile. They had the 2 years experience. So let's have a chat about moving to Australia. And pretty early in the conversation, they said, just to let you know, I don't actually have the 2 years experience. I've only been at this agency for 1 year. I was like, so what's happened? And the response was, when we start, we're encouraged to put an extra year on it. And they only hire grads, right? So they hire these grads and tell them to put an extra year on their LinkedIn.
Oh my God, that's so bad.
So that for anyone out there, it looks like they've got 2. So...
That is so bad. And this is why the industry has such a bad reputation. Like I've worked with people that were told to brand you to a certain desk, told to lie about placements that they've made in that particular industry and fabricate their essential track record.
Yep.
And what ends up happening as a result of that is it ends up making that recruiter less confident, because they're lying, and regardless if you can like show up with a smile and like pretend that you know that you're lying. Yeah. So the moment that you get caught out or you don't deliver, that's such a huge shot to that confidence. And that's like traumatic for the recruiter. I think that's such a big problem. I've seen it firsthand. I don't think it's going to stop. I think, that's a huge thing outside of the market mapping and that skill set too.
Yeah, it's something we see a lot. I think, you know, so many, and fair enough, like a lot of agencies will look to push into new markets, new sectors, new regions, which is awesome.
Yes.
But I also feel for sometimes the recruiters who take those roles and they just don't have the structure or support behind them.
And I think if there's no structure and support, that's okay. Be honest.
Yep.
Or step up and provide that if you can. But I think lying about the capability is not the answer. And I think there's something in going to a client and saying, hey, I've never worked in your industry, but I'm fucking passionate and I'm hungry and I won't fucking let you down.
Yep.
I'll like give you an apprenticeship rate, let's call it. Give me a shot. Like there's something in that for a client. Like as a business owner, if someone came to me, I'd be like, fuck yeah, like I'm going to give it to you. I reckon you'll outperform someone rather than someone come to me and lie about what they've done. And you're like, you slimy little dog.
100%, 100%. Like, I think, I just think back to, when probably we first started, right? Like in recruitment, and man, I was a grad, I knew nothing of nothing, right? In sales recruitment, and just some of the stuff we were probably told to do, and we just wouldn't do it because we're like,
no way,
we're going to get caught out. Like, do you know what I mean? But, I think that just exactly to that point, like a lot of that, call it not hustle culture, but just that ability to back yourself and say, hey, you know what? You're young, you're in your 20s, you've got energy. I think a lot of decision makers, I agree with you, see it and they go, fuck yeah, I want to give this kid a chance. I've met with all the other recruiters, they've delivered the same shit. This kid's something different. Let's see how they go.
And they've been honest. That's the thing. Because as a business owner, if you've got someone going, I've not done this before, but I'm going to work fucking hard, you're like, you've just been honest with me. And that buys a lot.
It says a lot.
Yeah.
One of the other things that we spoke about in our last catch-up was the importance of FaceTime with clients. And obviously, the fact that you're running events in another state shows that you really value that. But what's kind of your methodology around getting FaceTime with clients? Like, talk to us about that and how important it is for your desk and market. So
FaceTime's so important. I think what's important to note on this though is we are in a digital age and we're on like the cusp of what's going to transform now, as we see with AI and the rest. There's no denying that purchasing now, even in recruitment, is done a lot easier through a digital landscape. Like a lot of my clients are interstate and that's not been a barrier. So I think there's two parts to this and it kind of links to the personal brand. So the first part is you must, in this age that we're in and the way that business is tracking, you must be able to have a presence and connect in a digital way. And that I don't mean is send bulk emails and hope for the best. Like I mean truly connect, build a solid personal brand, connect at scale, all the rest of it. But that's not in like without face-to-face time. So face-to-face is still really important. My approach to face-to-face is strategic. So I'm not trying to go and meet every single client like a muppet and be frazzled, and really strategic around who am I meeting, why am I meeting them, what value can I add, is there opportunity here? And that goes the same for candidates too. So making sure that I have FaceTime with candidates. Like I said, I'm a national recruiter, so it doesn't make sense for me to fly to Sydney or Adelaide every day just to run a meeting. I do a lot over Teams, but I'm really strategic in the sense of running events interstate or planning a day in Adelaide to go see my key clients once a month or once a quarter. So making sure there's that time. So I think it's twofold.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I know when you first started, right, your role was more phone-based, right? Probably similar to, we started in a very similar environment, Lee and I as well, where, you weren't encouraged to go to face-to-face meetings. You were almost
discouraged.
Yeah, you were in trouble if you even booked one in, let's be honest.
Because it took you off the phones for too long.
Right? What differences have you seen? And I guess I've been lucky enough to be part of that sort of journey. What have you sort of seen just in terms of the quality of your relationships with your clients?
Face-to-face time builds like true connection. And I think phone and even Teams, like you can build a relationship, but that chemistry and that trust and that true energy exchange can only happen when you're sitting like this, face to face. So it's huge. And I think about year one, year two, which was just phone based. I was a good recruiter because I had the hustle and I followed through and I was really tenacious. but I didn't have repeat clients. I didn't have that real thought leadership in my space. And, you could argue, but you've had now 8 years. So is it the time in field or is it the way that you're showing up? And I would argue that time in field is important because it's reps, but it's the face-to-face time that I'm spending with clients to understand their business, add value in return. That's where that, connectivity, trust, equity is built.
Just on, I guess, obviously events are one thing, but with your, let's say, client meetings, client visits, are you I really want to get on site and kind of see your office, see the place? Are you, is it more breakfast, lunches, dinners? Like, what's kind of your go-to?
Both.
Yeah, right.
So, both, because I think they serve different purposes. Like, I think it's really important to see an office in some capacity from a sales perspective, because a lot of the roles, my people, the people that I recruit, are in field, so they're not really in an office. But that's not to say the office is an important part, because you can articulate what it feels like, what it looks like. That kind of you can't do through a phone call. But the connection that you build, as you guys would know, through like a coffee or a lunch, or even like going to the footy or something, like you start to really form relationships. What did you guys think on that?
No, I agree with you 100%. I think it's, always going out on site, seeing, and I guess for us as well, right? We love to go out in front of our clients, see their offices, the vibe, so you need to pass that on to your candidates as well, and knowing what that right match is. But then also, whether you take them to a footy match or, for a lunch, I think that's more focused on the personal side. So that's where you develop, you get to know about their families, about their kid who plays footy and he's got his grand final coming up. And that's when that next phone call, hey mate, how'd your son go in his footy grand final? Or, how the Tigers going this year? They're shit. And you sort of, you move the conversation away from just being that transaction where it's, hey, what have you got and what do you need? And, there's going to be a need for that, to now, hey, I'm having a chat with someone that I like.
Yeah.
Right? And it just builds more trust at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think there's kind of I think it was like some stats that resonate with me, funnily enough, from back in Randstad days, where, that business is really heavily focused on data, right? They can run a report on everything and anything. And there was one I remember that, looking at all the different data points that they had was, and don't quote me on this, but it was to the effect of, if you had a client meeting either 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after from a job, being put in the system, the likelihood that you would fill that job was pretty much double.
Yeah.
Right? And I think, that's something that stuck with me, and, for the rest of my career. And I definitely know it's true. Like, so often for me, it's a case of, if I'm struggling with the role, just get out and meet them.
Yeah.
And whether it's a coffee, on site, whatever, what do you know? The recruitment gods shine again, and you end up filling that role.
Yeah.
But I think, one thing Chris and I have seen with a lot of recruiters out there, especially ones that are reasonably new to the market, or the ones that started post-COVID, that have only ever started in that digital landscape, let's call it. Like, there's recruiters we've met that have got like 2 years experience and never done an actual face-to-face meeting.
Really?
Right? It's more common than you would think.
Then I would argue that that's the agency's
100%.
Responsibility to coach, develop, provide the why on the importance of that. That's sad, isn't it?
It is. But I mean, like you also see, I think, it's probably harder to book face-to-face meetings these days with your clients as well, right? Because, well, in some industries, right? Because some people are just, like, as a recruiter, you want to go and see them, but for them in their businesses, they might not be that way inclined, right?
I would argue that there's not enough value there then.
Cool.
Because if everyone's busy,
Yep.
but you're never too busy if you feel like there's true value in this. So not every client's going to say, no, I'm too busy, or no, I can't see you. Like, I think, I've never agreed with that. Like, I've heard that so many times from like peers, and I'm like, you've had a few no's, and so you've labelled your industry that they don't like to have meetings.
Yep.
It's not genuine. It's not a genuine reflection of the market. So my challenge would be, have you developed enough credibility and purpose for that meeting?
That they see the value
Yeah.
in taking the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be my kind of challenge to that.
And then I think it's a good point.
Yeah.
Nice. Final question, Pam.
Oh.
Final question. If you give a couple piece of advice to anyone new in the industry, 1 to 3 years, what would be the best piece of advice you could give?
Get really clear on your value proposition. So, what makes you you? What do you want to be known for? Get really, really clear on that. Build out a personal brand online, digitally. And I suppose the caveat to that is you can't build a personal brand that will outperform if you're doing jack shit. So you need to be able to back it up with deliverables, with showing up when it's difficult, showing up for your clients and following through. So I think getting clear on who you are, what your value is, building a personal brand, and then making sure that you deliver. That's like key.
Perfect.
Some good advice. Pam, thank you for coming on today. You have given us and our listeners some great advice. So thank you so much for your time. Good luck with the events. We look forward to seeing them on the socials. They're awesome. For anyone who's not connected to Pam, if you are interested to see what she's doing, make sure you give her a follow. Thanks for your time.
That's very kind.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
for having me.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Special Sauce. We hope that you're walking away with some insights that you can actually use every day on your desk. If you enjoyed the conversation, follow, like, subscribe, or leave a review so we can reach more recruiters just like you. For more about Sorciety, check out our website on sorciety.com or follow us on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening and see you next time on The Special Sauce.